anyway, so this is the flesh side of the skin, right? And if you guys want to come in here, you can actually see. I'll point these things out because these are things that one might see on old manuscripts. I mean, I'm trying to make sure that this, I could gross you guys out and tell you interesting stories, but whether it has anything to do with what you guys are studying is another matter. So I want to try to make sure that what you guys might see, what is important to you, that I'm trying to cover here, which is what one might see on old documents or old manuscripts. And these here, these lines, the sort of smiles there, those are flesh cuts. So that's when someone is trying to remove the hide from the animal, and they end up slicing into the hide with the knife. Okay. If you're lucky, you won't see any of that. If you do see any of it, hopefully it will just be, it will just be along the edge of the skin. Okay. Sometimes you'll end up seeing it right in the middle or something, which is, then that's a large piece of skin that's been compromised. But as I'm sure you've all seen, there are lots of times where you'll see holes in parchment, and they will either try to sew it up or repair it, or they'll just write around it, or in some cases they'll even embellish it, to sort of work with it. So it was way too precious of a material to be able to just take that and throw it out. So they would use what they could. All right? But so I'm basically trying to do the same operation as I did with that wooden knife, except on the flesh side, and this is much sharper. Okay? And I think of it as it's like you're sort of carving meat a little bit, like a ham or something, or using a deli slicer where you sort of just move side to side when you do it. So, all right, that's the kind of operation that you're trying to do. All right, you see the change in color underneath. I mean, that's because the flesh above, on the outside has. That's where all of the the dirt, the blood, feces, anything else that might have absorbed into the skin is still sort of stuck on the outside layer. It hasn't penetrated all that far. So it is important to be able to clean the flesh side of the skin off, so whatever chemicals you need can penetrate further into the skin. This is a fairly clean hide, which is good, but sometimes, like with the deer skin, for instance, deer are wild animals. They are, they're brought to us by hunters. They don't necessarily know how to butcher an animal very well, so when they shoot it and try to skin it, they will sometimes, it'll just be, chock full of holes, or sometimes they'll leave huge amounts of meat on the hide still. So, I mean, they're a wild animal, and they certainly look like it after you clean the hide up. I mean, they have holes in them from getting shot. You won't see that with a domesticated animal like a sheep, although, 500, 600 years ago, if they were domesticated, you would sometimes see holes along the edges where where there might be butcher cuts, but you certainly wouldn't see bullet holes or anything. Sometimes the deer will show up with arrow holes in them too, because they could be hunted using bows. But 99% of the time, you will never see marks like that on a domesticated animal. See, that's the kind of surface that you're looking for right there. It's important to know how to sharpen a knife, to keep it nice and sharp. It's something I, have some experience with, but not as much as I would like. It's very very important to be able to keep the edge sharp. So, imagine doing this, you know, for, I mean, it's taken me, what, 5 minutes to do this much of a skin? Compare that to, I'll show you this other wonderful thing we have here. I just was wondering if you can actually see a cross section. You can sort of see the different layers in the hide there. There's that like dark stripe in the middle, and that's where the base of all the hair roots are. So, and the skin is very, very swollen at this point. You know, the hide would be much thinner by the time the skin is dry and the pH has been, you know, has been fixed. But I'll show you how we would do this particular process nowadays. The advent of wonderful modern technology. Just want to make sure that I've cleaned off as much of the hair as I can. Alright, so if you guys want to make your way around to the other side of these machines here. Okay, this is a fleshing machine. Very creative name. Alright, and most machines in a tannery sort of operate around the same premise, which is, you know, just a series of rolls that you are going to run the skin through. I want to point out there is a spinning flywheel over your head. Don't do anything.
Raise your hand.
Yeah, don't raise your hand.
Watch your head.
If you want to answer a question, go, ooh, I know. Don't do that. Okay, so, you know, what I had done over a beam, a fleshing beam over there, using that long draw knife. Here you've got a rubber roll which has some give to it. The skin sits on this. You have a corrugated roll here which helps to grab the skin and give it traction. And then you have this long sort of barber pole looking thing in there, which is actually a cylindrical blade. Okay? So, it's a very nice weed. Don't get your hand stuck in there. Hide off pretty quickly. You also have the ability to adjust this further in against the blade. So, nice and clean. Still doesn't look like parchment, but it's certainly doesn't really look like a gross, disgusting animal hide anymore. Or maybe it does, but you take the hair off and it's kind of hard to tell what you're looking at. So, all right? nice thing about sheepskin is that because the wool is so thick, it makes it very hard for anything to reach the hide, very dense wool. So the sheepskins tend to have pretty clean surfaces. Compare that to a calf or a goat, a particular goat. Because a goat of this size is usually an adult goat. You know, if it's a male goat, it's going to be busy defending territory and getting into fights and everything, so it's going to be pretty badly scarred up. So we'll have lots of marks and defects on the skin. A calf of this size, maybe not so much, because it's still only a few weeks old, so it hasn't really had enough time to collect any any scars or cuts or anything. So. Stir. You'll see what it looks like later on.